So welcome everybody. We're going to talk about what the class is about, how it's supposed to function, how it's different from other courses, and I'm going to answer any questions that you guys might have. A lot of this information is covered in this module on Canvas. If you guys have not checked this out on Canvas, then I honestly don't know what you're doing here, because that's the only way that you could know when the meeting times are and where all of the links are, but somehow you're here, so congratulations. And I filled out as much of this information as I possibly can. I'm just going to click through them and then ask, are there any questions about this? Because I think that would be the fastest way to fly through this. So first, the big one probably is, what's this course about? This course is not officially a lecture course, meaning that I'm not supposed to teach you officially to use Unity or do art or program or design games. What I'm supposed to do is oversee your attempts to create game projects. And if you're experienced, you probably know what goes into that and all the sort of things that you have to do. If you're not experienced, then that means you need some guidance. And for that, I have the second module, which shows each of the disciplines and what's the sort of things you should be doing if you're intermediate, beginner, or advanced in those areas. So, are there any questions just about this concept? Anyone confused? Are you sure? Because I've had a lot of people ask me. So essentially, if you are more advanced, and according to our survey, I'm going to just say the yellow people, we'll just call them advanced, about half of the class knows enough of what they're doing to do their part in a game development project. So that might mean writing scripts, that might mean designing game mechanics, that might mean providing 2D or 3D art for a game. And if you are right on the cusp of those things but not quite, then there's a place for you here too, where you can just learn how to fully integrate something into a game project. Absolutely. Now, where I'd recommend that you guys ask questions, either if you need an immediate answer, then use Discord, because people leave that open all day. There's always someone around. But if you need a more documented answer, then I would actually suggest that you guys use the discussions forum on Canvas, because you can have an ongoing conversation about something here, which is not constantly pinging everybody and, clouding up the channel in Discord. So if, for instance, you guys wanted to discuss what the best practices are for 3D modeling, make a topic for discussion and talk about it in here. Or if you wanted to have a best practices discussion for a game design document or for scripting, then probably you want to have that larger discussion here. Otherwise, just post a question in Discord, ideally in the class channel, so you're talking to the right people, or if it's a broad enough topic, in the main text channel is just fine. And as you scroll around in here, you can probably see that lots of people have been answering questions already. All right, so we basically know what the course is about. You're going to make games. Okay. Are there going to be lectures? Not really, but I do have a document on Google Drive. And remember, the links to Google Drive and to all of this stuff is just right on the home page of Canvas. I have two documents that I want to draw your attention to. One is lecture topic requests, and the other one is link sharing. The third one you guys have already been filling out, and we'll take a look at in just a moment. So for lecture topics, I can, any given week, talk about something that I'm qualified to talk about. That would be art, mostly, a little bit of game design, and a little bit of coding, but not very much, but mostly art, or project management, or self-discipline, that sort of stuff. So if you want me to lecture on something, then you got to fill this out by opening this document, copying this section, and filling out this stuff. And then I'll respond here if I'm incapable of addressing it, or if there's problems and I want to clarify, I'll just put comments on it. So that's for you guys to request. If not, then what our in-person meetings are, or sorry, these voice meetings are, is to check in with you. How's your progress going? Are you lost? Do you need help? Do you need to change something? And of course, play testing what you guys are going to publish as well. The other document, link sharing, is resources. I've filled it out with all the resources that I can think of. There's a little table of contents that you can just hop over to something by clicking like that. And then these are the resources that I've thought might be appropriate for you guys. And if you want to add to this list, feel free. So 3D art information, I've got a few places where you can get basic information and tutorials, 2D art information, tutorials and basic information, and also drawing courses. This is an audio program that's free that you can make 8-bit sound effects. Programming resources, these are ones that I've used to self-teach in C# programming for Unity, but I'm sure that the actual programmers will have many, many more, and etc. So please feel free, if you think there's something that everybody should know about, drop it in here. I will only caution that if you're talking about software, then make sure it's legal. Okay, so only official software, not here's where you can download something that you're not supposed to have for free. Okay. Cool. Questions so far? Okay. Let's talk about the schedule. This document here, most of you seem to have filled out, but maybe a few of you are still a little bit confused about it. Thank you for so many of you filling it out. Is to keep track of your progress and for me to be aware when I need to playtest something and how I can most easily playtest it. In fact, it would be for everybody. So you find your name. Let's just, for instance, boom, there's a person. And you think, well, based on what I'm going to try to do, this is how many weeks I think I need to try to complete a tutorial or try to put together my prototype that I'm building. Okay, so a lot of you have given yourself 2-week gaps. That would be for something very simple like tutorials plus a little bit. Okay, then when it's come time, so whenever we get to this week, so this would be March 1st, week of March 1st, you would paste the link to your online hosted game right here. And it does, for the most part, have to be online hosted because that's going to be the only way we're going to be able to quickly view and play everyone's projects. I do have an article here, Publishing Your Projects, about how to publish Webgl and how to upload it to itch.io, which is free, so that you can play it directly in browser. So if you've never done that before, this is where you could do that. A lot of people have been asking me, hey, what does a full playable game mean in the context of this class? What it means is dependent on what you're trying to do. So if you are programming something, we need to be able to fiddle with it and see that the code does something. Okay, it shouldn't look like there are many more features that are missing. It shouldn't look like this is intended to be something much larger but is only currently a fraction of what it's supposed to be. It just has to work so that we can play with it, view it, publish it, whatever, online. Okay, in the case of artists, that might just mean a scene that opens and has an object in it. Although if what you guys are trying to do is just show off your work, there are better places to do that than publishing a Unity project. That would be more like uploading to Sketchfab or something like that. Which, did I put that? I hope I put Sketchfab in here. Let me just check real fast. Oh, geez, I didn't. Well, that's okay. So I'll fill this out, but Sketchfab is a website where you can publish 3D models for viewing. And so that is a really, really easy way to share your 3D models and make them viewable to everyone online. So this might count as your turn-in link when you submit something like that. Or if it was 2D art, then it might just be, you know, an ArtStation listing, which I didn't put here either. Jeez. ArtStation. Okay, so that would be like DeviantArt but serious. I don't know. I'll write the description later. So you're going to have to somehow make a published project that we can see. If you're a game designer, then yeah, we got to be able to play it, whatever it is. There's really no point unless we can play the thing. That could be a set of rules on paper with suggestions for objects around the house that we could play with if you're going the pen and paper or traditional board games route. But if it is a video game, then it's got to be able to play in browser. Okay, Any questions about that? Yeah, if you're a game designer, one of the mainstay places that you learn to design games is by just messing with board games and tabletop games. So if that's what you were doing, my project is to, I don't know, redesign Monopoly so it's not enraging and destroys your family home, then you would give us your published rule set for that and say the suggested materials are one game of Monopoly and maybe a set of checkers or a few small stones or, you know, whatever your addition is. But you would write those rules up officially the same way you would a game design document. Does that make sense? Okay. Other questions? See Isaiah typing, but no. Okay. Where are you? I'm gonna wait for him if he's asking a question. Wait, I don't actually see him in the voice channel. Huh. Maybe he's having trouble connecting or something. Well, we'll go on then. I have a bunch of resources here that I just like feverishly filled out before the quarter started to try to help you in every possible way I can anticipate. The thing is, there's no way I'm going to be able to anticipate everything, so you've got to ask questions of me or, you'll go unhelped. I have lots of recommendations for software with a particular focus on art because that is my area of expertise. I have suggestions for hardware for digital drawing if that is your thing or something that you want to do. Suggestions on how to use Discord. Obviously, you guys are all here, so you probably don't need that. Publishing your project. And just recently, I put up this group project guide because I know some of you are going to want to, or probably need to at this point, work in groups so we can talk about the mechanics of that as well. Then beneath down here, I have a full description to the best of my ability of what you should try to do to learn each one of these three disciplines, starting from scratch or advancing towards a more experienced level. Can we upload in Sketchfab using the student version of Maya, or do you need to buy it? No, the student version of Maya is preferred. Yeah. You guys don't have to pay for Maya because being a student gives it to you for free. Same thing's true for Photoshop through Norco College. Unity's free for everybody until you publish and sell over, I don't know what it is, $200,000 or something like that. Most of these suggestions are free, or cheap, depending on what it is. And I always try to find free alternatives for things because I know you guys don't want to spend a bunch of money. But yeah, you don't have to buy Maya, and please don't try to buy Maya. It's very, very expensive for a professional license. All right. Any questions about any of that? Hardware, software, Discord, publishing, etc. Can we access the Photoshop license remotely now? Yes, you can. You just have to use your Norco email. So there is, I want to say, a whole page. Yeah, this whole page right here that links at the top of that article talks about where you have access to Adobe Creative Cloud and how you fill out all that information. But because you're a Norco student, you have access to that. Ooh, wow, that's a good question. Geez. I have to think about that carefully because I'm not sure what my answer is. I'll give you a tentative no for now just because that's the safer answer, but I might be okay with that. It's just risky. We're a class. You're going to get a grade. If someone outside of the class flakes on you and disappears and leaves you without the ability to complete your project, there's no repercussions for them, but there are repercussions for you. So I would be very cautious about that sort of thing for a class. On your own, that's a really good idea. You should collaborate with people as much as you can. So tentatively for now, I'll say no. Let's talk about group projects though. Can you work in groups? Yes, you can, but be careful of the coordination challenge that poses. If you're just trying to work in a group because you'd rather do it that way than alone, that's not a very good reason. And working in a group comes with responsibility. I'm sure all through, grade school and high school, you've probably been forced to work in groups at one time or another, and sometimes it's awful. And that's because it's very low stakes and not everybody cares. In our setting, we tend to care a whole lot more, which has its own set of challenges. Sometimes we care so much that we start arguing and fighting with each other. So you have to be really cautious about that. I have a brief list and then also this form, which I want people to fill out so that I can officially address you guys as a group. Am I like zoomed out or something? Oh, I am. That's funny. So that I can officially address you guys as a group. Describe your project. What's the goal? Have a goal other than make a thing, right? A more specific goal than that. List your names, and then how many of these have you accounted for in your project, and when is the thing going to be due? That's just so that I can keep track of you guys and talk to you as a group. Okay. Let me see. We got questions down here. Did you go to your actual sprite? Oh, someone's just giving instructions for that. That's okay. So yeah, you can work in groups. I would suggest that you be on the more advanced side of your skill before you attempt this. So don't start working in a group if you don't know how to script at all, unless you have a more experienced coder who is willing to help you learn coding through a project. That's fine. But you have to find someone like that if you're just a beginner and want to work in a group. Otherwise, what you should really be doing is just following simple tutorials to start out. Can you work alone? Yeah, absolutely you can work alone. How many people can you have in a group? Be careful, don't make it too big. I don't want to put a number to that because everybody takes the number way too seriously, but think about how complicated it can get once you hit 4 or 5 people. How many different opinions there are, how many different directions the project can go in, who is now in charge of saying yes and no to features. It becomes harder and harder to manage the larger the group you have. If you're working with one other person, it's way easier. Yeah, beware of what ifs. Absolutely. How many times we get to take this class if we are aiming for all 3 tracks? I don't know the answer to that. I think it might be as many as you want, but don't quote me. This curriculum is brand new. It's the first time I'm teaching it. It's one of the first times it's being offered. I don't quite remember the rules exactly. So that would be something to kind of look up in the official documentation of the class listing. Are people typing in the main channel also? Because I'm not watching that one. Okay. I just saw something up there and I was confused. So yeah, I'm gonna stick to the GAM7 channel. There we go. With that said, I would say that this class is probably better suited for more advanced students because that's when you get to collaborate together, all together in a place where it makes sense that you have stakes associated with it. You have a little bit of oversight, but I've been told that this should be friendly to people who have no experience also. Now, we're not going to saddle an experienced group with someone who doesn't know anything because that might upset them. But we are going to say, let's help them out. Let's point them in the right direction. Let's give them resources and also give them feedback on their work so that they start off on the right foot and then potentially go on to take other more advanced classes that help them learn exactly what they prefer. All right. I still see people typing out questions, I think. Let me see when they complete those and we can move on. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to just ask. Giving them a second to just fill that stuff out. Okay, if we have a project that we have been working on, are we able to continue working on it in this class? Yes, but everything has to have a due date, right? So yeah, you can work on something you've previously worked on. How many weeks are you going to dedicate to it? When is it due? So we have to see it. Mm-hmm. Yes. Correct. Correct. And one of the things I want to avoid is I work on it and I work on it and I work on it and I work on it until I think it's done. Instead, I want you to say, I'm dedicating this number of weeks to this thing. And on this week, I either say it was a failure and I'm not going to turn it in, and then you just mark it as an A, or I am showing it to you and then you paste the link. And by the way, you're not going to be penalized for abandoning something. I just want to keep track, right? You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. Well, it's not a waste to gain experience and to know what your limits are and why it was a bad idea. Ideally, when something is abandoned, I want to have a short conversation about it, like what went wrong, what can you do better next time, or if you want to show it still, then go ahead and we can view it and give comment on it, but not count it towards the grade. So yeah, we can do that. Okay. Um, and I do want you guys always to put your links in this document because as a part of the class, and I don't know how this is going to appear for you guys, but some of you have commented on, oh no, there's 10 game projects here. What do I do? No, these are just the same project over and over and over again, and you submit as many of these as you get to. So you might only submit 2 or 3 of these, or you might run through all 10 of them. That's down to you. But what I've done in the setup is to make it so that, is it going to say? I think I have to go to edit. It's going to require peer reviews. So when you turn it in, it's just fill out the questions in the assignment up here. But I want everyone to peer review, as in answer these questions, and it's set to automatically assign, require peer reviews, automatically assign peer reviews, and they're going to appear anonymously. So you don't have to worry about someone being mad at you. Do be polite though. That should happen every time someone turns something in. So essentially, you're going to have a whole class full of playtesters, no matter what you turn in, or viewers if it's an art piece. Okay, so that should be interesting, and I'm interested to see how intuitive that process is when that gets assigned. We've got some more questions typed out here. Let's see. Like my first week, can I show the project I've been working on, and then every time I have a due date, I show what I've been doing towards that project? If you are going to try to schedule that, I want a distinct goal each time. So that would require a distinct, different goal each time. So potentially saying, if I want to work on one continuous project, can I do that? Sort of. If your first goal is, I want to have the basic mechanic scripting in place, and then you turn it in at that stage, that's like a pre-alpha or an alpha development stage, that's fine. And then my next goal is, I want to have the test level design layout and mechanics working together, that's fine. And then you turn that in, we show that. And then the third time you say, now I want to have my art assets complete and integrated, then you turn that in, and that's fine. At that point, maybe the project is done. That's fine with me. Yeah, you'd be turning in your milestones at that point. Let's see, Mark says, just a clarification on the tabletop game thing. We'd be able to turn in just like a document of rules along with maybe some art illustration, whatever the game entails. I'd be very excited to turn in D&D type of game if I'm understanding correctly. A D&D type game is gigantic. I would never endorse attempting that, but other than that part, yes, you can turn in a document of rules for a tabletop game, but keep in mind that we need to be able to play test your game. So if your game is so complicated that we need many different sets of, D20 or dungeon dice types of things and a bespoke deck of cards that you've made, there's no way we can play test that. We just won't be able to. But if your tabletop game involves a standard checkers set and a piece of scratch paper to write things down on, we can definitely play test that. So keep in mind the practical limits of the class. But yes, you can turn in something like that as your game design, especially for game designers. I think that's a much easier way to practice game design than trying to produce a whole video game. Salvo says, I'm a little confused about the schedule about project every 2 weeks. Salvo, you set your schedule yourself. So in this example student up here, I would think about what my goals are, and I just pasted some things up there. So I'll just delete a few. And I think, well, it's going to take me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks to meet my first goal. So I put a P in here, and when we get to this week, that's when I paste a link to my finished product. Then for my next goal, I think, well, then I'm going to do tutorials, so I'll just put one every second week for a while. And at this point, I'm going to dedicate myself to a month-long project. So this becomes my schedule that I am responsible for. The reason I'm doing this is because it's very common for students to think, I'm just going to work on something forever until it's done, and that ends up being a very counterproductive way to work. I also want you to have responsibility and be accountable so that when we get to a certain week, where's that thing you promised us, right? We want to see it. And if you don't have it, we need to talk about why, because your approach needs to change. Roll20 browser-based tabletop game design tool that you can use to playtest with multiplayer. That is true if you can make it so that there is a clickable link that when we click it, we are in an environment where we can playtest. Potentially that could be fine, but keep in mind this is a asynchronous class, so if we have to set an appointment for you to DM something for us, that's probably going to be far too unwieldy. 10 project as each new projects. It can be same project as one for all weeks. I think I just answered that question. The answer was yes, if you have milestones that you're turning in. And as a clarifying note also, you do not have to turn in 10 things. I've provided 10 things here so that you can use this 10 times. And if people get to the 11th one, there's no 11th one, I'll just duplicate this again and call it number 11, 12, 13, whatever. You don't have to turn in 10 things. You decide how many things is an appropriate pace for you. Now, I will say, if you're only going to turn in one thing for the entire quarter all the way over here, then I really need to know what you're working on, because that's going to be very little work that we get to see, and the whole feedback nature of the class is going to be defeated at that point. Okay, so I prefer you to turn in much smaller bite-sized things, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every 3, maybe every 4 weeks. Something like that is reasonable. Okay. Also, I just noticed this. This guy right here, I put a note. You don't have to mark them abandoned already. You haven't attempted them yet. So it would be impossible to have already abandoned something. Okay, so if you change your schedule well before you ever attempt something, you don't have to mark it as abandoned. You can just delete those. In fact, I will delete that for this person because I think maybe they misunderstood. I'll leave that first one because I put a note on it for them in case they're not watching the video. Like one project for Maya, one project for animation, both are in one project. Like modeling and animation, yes, that would be a good way to split up one project into 2 things. So if your first milestone is I'm going to model all of the assets that I'm intending to animate, and then the second milestone is I'm going to animate all those assets that I set up, that's a good way to break one project into 2 milestones, yes. All right, any other questions so far? Haha, somebody did it. There we go. This is the breakdown demographically of the class, by the way, just so that you guys are all aware. You should be able to see this response sheet if you look at the survey that you filled out. But we have this many game designers, this many programmers, this many 3D artists, this many 2D artists. You were able to select as many as you wanted. So we don't have 32 people just in this category. That's split amongst all of them. So a lot of people are into design. The lowest population is programming, and we've got 3D art as the second, 2D art as the third, and then how confident people are. You guys are all hovering around the 6 range with a sort of bell curve fall off here. Again, you guys are funny. Very little people willing to say that they're this confident. But at about this range, you're ready to collaborate with maybe one person or two, or do more advanced solo projects. That's what I would say. Once you start hitting the 8 range, then you pretty much need to work in a team to get the best bang for your buck. And we have a list of what people have filled out as the thing they're most interested in, which I've been kind of just skimming through to see what people are very interested in. There's a lot of practical knowledge in here, like trim sheets and 2D art and 3D modeling. That's not what kind of class this is, but it would be a great time to study that with others. If you wanted to, for a project, have a semi-collaborative thing where 3 or 4 of you tried to model the same thing and then compare your results, that would be a good group project, which doesn't have the risk that someone isn't going to come through and it won't be completed for the other people. So you could do those sort of semi-competitive things as well. All right, let's see. Did I get one more? Playable. It requires the game to play or just view them as a portfolio to show off. Yeah, for just art, if you are just an artist, viewable is what you can interpret playable as. Viewable. And for that, in the link sharing, once I get the opportunity to type it all out, Sketchfab is what I would recommend for 3D models, or animated 3D models. And ArtStation is a good place to start listing your 2D work. It's just a portfolio site, although you can list it anywhere as long as we can view the thing. In fact, if you can make a play blast of your 3D animated stuff, or just save the PNG or JPEG directly into the Google Drive, that's fine for art. Okay? We just need to be able to, in one click, go there. So if you share a link from our Google Drive folder and then paste it right into the spreadsheet, everyone can just click on that, go right to the asset, and take a look at it. But yeah, you're not being asked to master all 3 disciplines. Not at all. What I might do... What's that?
I'm sorry, just for like my own clarification, if we're like a 3D artist, we're just putting stuff in like a portfolio, like 3D art.
Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, kind of.
Then yes. Or you're teaming up with someone who can script or design games and providing the 3D assets for their project in a group project. Right? Or if you were interested in like, well, I could do this well, but I want to learn this other thing, then you would use your 3D modeling ability in conjunction with something else and turn in a different project. But the nature of project is up to you. We just need to be able to see it or play it if it's playable. All right. So each one of these, by the way, I'm going to close a couple of those. Let's see. I won't close that one because I got to fill that one out. Close this one. Each one of these has, to the best of my knowledge, advice. If you are within this discipline and fairly experienced and you take exception to something I've said, talk to me about it, because I'm not entirely sure if everything I'm saying outside of the art discipline is completely sound. So I'm open to debate and changing this a little bit. I've just kind of done my best to take my best guess, and based on what I've experienced, that you should probably be doing. I talk about what game design is, what you should probably do and not do starting out, and then what sort of projects you might want to be attempting. And then if you are a novice, that means you've gone beyond the I have no idea what I'm doing stage and passed into the I don't know how to do most things stage. Here's what you should do and not do. Intermediate, when should you start working on a team specifically for game designers? And then advanced, I kind of just don't give very much advice and just say at this point, here's what you should try to look to do. Okay. So I do the same thing for programming and the same thing for game art. Again, in game art, I have a lot more authority in what you should be doing and not be doing. And in game art, there is the particular problem of production stages affecting hugely what kind of job you might be doing, and also a lot of specialization. And in programming, I probably know the least about, pedagogically what you should be doing, but I don't have to, because Unity Learn has pathways provided for self-teaching, which are excellent. So that is the most well-trodden area for online learning. And I would strongly recommend doing either Unity Essentials if you don't know Unity at all and want to use this class to get familiar with Unity. That would be good even for the artists. Or learn how to do scripting. There's a whole junior programmer pathway. I recently just popped this open and did the tests for each one of the stages and found that I could pass like the first 3 or 4 of them, no sweat. And that's all from self-teaching. And most of that has been because Unity's tutorial resources are excellent. So there you go. That's a lot of what you can be doing. Okay. Questions? Comments?
Cool.
Cool.
I actually have a question. Will we be learning how to figure out workflows or no?
Workflow for?
I don't know, like, say from Aspire to Unity.
That is a great thing to learn, and you definitely can learn that. Will I be lecturing on that? Well, only if you request it. And I can teach you that because that's not too hard.
Hi, Professor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm the sign language interpreter.
Hello.
Our student has a question. Okay, so whenever we start working on the project, let's say we'll make the playable game. So the first project, let's say I'll make a model,
Mm-hmm.
just like a basic model, not including any stickers or anything like that. So once I finish that project, would I submit that and then start another project, just adding on the stickers from that first project?
That is a way that you can do it, but I'm not requiring something like that. That is a valid way to turn in your work, yes. I have had Salvo before, by the way, and when I give options, I've noticed that he gets a lot more confused as opposed to just dictate what needs to be done. This is a very option open class. And so I think he's a bit confused that I'm not saying you must do this, you must do that. Instead, I'm saying you can do this, you can do that. And I've noticed that he tends to get a lot more nervous about that sort of thing.
Okay.
But yes, what you just described is absolutely fine. If you wanted to do a large project over several weeks and turn in milestones in that project, that's fine. Or if you wanted to turn in completely different projects, that would be fine as well.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I had one other question.
Yes.
So to submit these, do I need to send it on Google like as a portfolio, or do I submit it on Canvas? Where do we submit these projects?
There's no way to submit it on Canvas because I've made it so that all of these are just a text entry for submission. So what you're submitting when you grab one of these assignments and just do them in order, start with 1, then 2, then 3, is you will answer these questions, answer the following questions upon submission. So where can your game be found and played? That's just a link. So if it is a art asset, you can just drop it into Google Drive, or you can list it on an online social media sharing site. All of those are fine. What is your game called? If it has a name, that's just for my ability to talk about it. Makes it a little bit easier. What was your goal for creating it? So you are going to try to do something with every project, and your peer feedback is going to reflect that. How well did you do the thing? So if it was painting a picture, let's say, then your goal for painting that picture might be, I wanted to learn to use light and shadow to create a more three-dimensional painting. Then your peer reviewers are going to look at your painting and say, yeah, I think you did that, or no, it doesn't quite work because I can't tell that this thing is round, right? Then how well do you think you accomplished your goal? That's you critiquing yourself in comparison to your peers critiquing you. What might you do different next time, or what have you learned? And that will help you to reflect and put into context everything that you do. So all you're going to do for each submission of homework is fill out these questions. These questions up here are just for the peer reviewers so that they can easily find these are the things that they are supposed to provide. and then you decide whether or not you're going to just stick it into a folder in Google Drive. You could put a folder with your name on it and stick your submission in here. Give us a link to that. Or use an online sharing site such as Sketchfab or ArtStation. And links to those will be in the link sharing document on our Google Drive folder right here. Down in the 2D art section, I'm going to fill this one out, and then 3D art section, I'm going to fill this one out. I'll probably try to provide a couple extra options as well.
Okay, that's fine. I think I'll probably just submit mine through Google Drive. It looks easier.
That is easy, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I don't know where I was, but I think I've kind of talked about everything I wanted to, so I'm just answering your guys' questions now. And if there are no questions, then that's it.
I just want to the calendar aspect is like seems pretty important though, right? Like
Yes. This is where people are expected to get the link from, unless they're just directly in Canvas doing the feedback right then. Then in your assignment submission, there was a place to put that link. So the very first question is, where can we play it? Paste your link right here too. So I want to make sure that it's absolutely clear that you can either find it right here or right here every single time so that nothing gets lost. I think you got to hold down your button. You cut out.
Sorry, it's just because my phone, I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I haven't set up my project schedule yet, so
right.
I still have to do that. I know that's important.
Yeah, and you can change it.
I know that's important.
Yeah, so just take a guess, and then if it turns out that you gave yourself far too much time or far too little, then just change it before we get to that week. And talk to me about it when you do it. So you might have set, like most people did, every 2 weeks, but that might be too much time for certain tutorials. And so someone might do that for a while and then say, yeah, you know what? I could do one of these a week, and then set it like that for a while. And then they might get to the point where they run out of those easy tutorials and say, well, I want to try something harder. Now I'm going to give myself 2 weeks again, or now I'm going to give myself 3 or 4. So yeah, this is completely open to interpretation and debate. If you're coming up on the week where something is due, that's when I want you to have a more serious conversation with me about whether or not you're abandoning in-process work.
Well, it's just all like most of the stuff that I'm currently working on is either in Unity or Doom.
Yes.
So it's like, I'm only going to be really submitting like small.
You cut out again.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to ask questions. It's just my phone is not working.
It's okay. But yeah, I get what you're saying. You're going to be submitting small edits then?
Yeah.
Yeah, just have a very clear goal for what you're intending. Yeah. Let's see. Juan says, if we want to focus on making 3D environments, would it be preferred to show in Sketchfab or in Unity? I would say, Juan, if you can do it in Unity, go ahead and do it in Unity, because that's going to be more impressive that you can manage to, as an artist, have a player controller camera that can fly us around the level, if you're comfortable with that. Or have a character that we can run around in the level. If not, then you can use Sketchfab to just upload a 3D environment. There are some limits on the size and complexity of Sketchfab scenes, but they're not really that punitive, and we've done some pretty complicated things before in Sketchfab. It occurs to me that not all of you guys have probably met me or taken classes with me before, so let's go to Sketchfab. Actually, let's go to ArtStation, because I've got it listed up there just real fast, because I'll show you the kind of complexity that you can get away with in... Where do I go to just my own thing? Oh, view? Yeah. The kind of complexity you can get away with in Sketchfab. So this was a collaborative 3D animation project that a whole class did based off of this concept art. And here's just a bunch of like development art that I did. But this here is an embeddable Sketchfab project. And so when I click on it, it'll take a second to load because it's very complicated. Here we've got an entire animated building full of characters and special effects. So if we can do something like this, you can probably upload a level. You just might run into performance issues eventually with how complicated it ends up being.
So it doesn't have to be interactive?
It doesn't have to be, no. I would say if you're a game designer, playing your game is the most important thing. It'd be weird if there was nothing for us to play. If you're a programmer, demonstrating that your code works is what we want to see. Does that mean it needs to be interactive? Maybe, maybe not. If you're an artist, it doesn't need to be interactive at all. It just needs to be showcased. But the cool thing about Sketchfab is that even if you have animations, you can pause them, you can scrub them, you can navigate around and look at different aspects of it. That's why it's such a powerful way to showcase 3D work. So it kind of makes it interactive in a way, but no, you don't have to have it fully interactive. You can just give us renders. Don't assume that everybody else has Maya, though. I mean, half the class is programmers and game designers. They're not going to have Maya. You need to render a still if you're going to show off a 3D object and not use Sketchfab. But if you do use Sketchfab, then it's just a browser link.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
So, I mean, but, you know, you can still use, like, FBX and object files, right?
You can use FBX and object files to upload to Sketchfab, but what is someone who doesn't know 3D software going to do with that? They're not going to have any idea how to view that. Right? So what you have to do is render your 3D object as a 2D picture if you want everyone to be able to see it. Okay? Or upload it to something like this, which has built-in capability to show off something 3D. And you could use Marmoset Viewer as well. That's another popular one. Let's see what we got down here. Going from Maya to Unity is something I want to learn. It's super easy one. I swear. Just go through like the early Unity Essentials thing and you're practically there already. Nathan says, are group projects only making a game together, or can there be a group model showcase like what you're showing? Yes, absolutely. If you want to collaborate with several other artists to make some larger art piece like this one, that is a good, valid group project. And then the way to showcase that would be like on Sketchfab or through renders. Yep. Who's asking a question?
Oh, sorry, I was.
Yeah.
So if, let's just say like we're just doing the 3D model, is it better just to have it like images of it rendered out, or?
Well, let me show you something because I've got a bunch of collections of stuff that I've just kind of browsed, and we can find other people's showcases of 3D models on here, like low poly assets, and let's just see how a few people showcase their work just randomly. So here's just a nice looking render of a 3D object. Presentable. It's nice. Here are some sketches of the design process of that. Nothing really interactive here. Does that pass muster? Yeah, sure it does. Oh, look, a little animated GIF down here of some lighting effect. That's cool. So this is one potential way to show off your 3D model. Here's another one, animated render of a 3D rotating object. Here's just a still. Here's several angles of still. This is a common way to showcase 3D objects where it's not going to be animated or interactive in any way. If you do have detail around your object and you don't want to do anything interactive, doing a several different vantage points still like this is a great way to showcase it. And sometimes they even show off the texture pages like this. Concept art. And then down here, check it out, Marmoset. Full, interactive, animated. And because it's Marmoset, I can click this button and I can see the different texture passes. Okay? So the answer is do all of them if you have the time and energy, because it's going to look much more impressive to do all of them. But you have to just somehow get it in front of us so that we can be impressed by it. And that is the goal, by the way. Artists, your goal is to impress people. It's not to say, look, I did it, the bare minimum effort. It's to make us go, wow, that's pretty. Because that's the entire job of every artist, is to make people go, wow, that's pretty. Okay? So here's another one. This person's got an animated GIF of this rotating back and forth to show three-dimensionality, but it doesn't have any interaction. Then we've got a large still and a comparison shot of wireframe versus rendered. Close up, close up, close up, single isolated asset, a sheet of all the various assets that went into assembling that scene, a little bit of concept art and wireframe, as well as concept painting. And then, hey, look, we got a marmoset again down here. Oh, and this is the same person. I think I was clicking on the same persons a few times. I don't know. I have used Sketchfab. I haven't used Marmoset. Not entirely sure. This one's got a full-on like YouTube video about their process, so I won't bother clicking on that. But does that kind of give you the idea? Marmoset's $200? Yeah. No way. Wow. I mean, I don't know why it's so popular if it's that expensive, but it goes on sale pretty often. All right. Well, there you are. Does that make sense? Impress people. That's what we're looking for. Other questions? Yeah. You may have to hold down your button again. Yeah, there you go. Yep. Yes. Yeah, if you have familiarity and comfort in Unity, making something interactive is always more impressive than non-interactive. Even if you're just doing a very simple camera movement, that's better than nothing. Although for 2D assets, it's very common to just have a collection of those in a still shot just to show them off. If you can show that you have comfort and proficiency in Engine, that is very attractive to employers, and it gives you that extra bit of presentation value that's going to put you above other artists trying to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I have in, where is it? In the module with hardware, where is it? Oh, software, sorry. I have recommendations for a video editing software. Did I put that in here? I think I put that in my animation class. I might have to paste it in here. You can render a video and you could upload that, so like MP4 or something like that. Or you can make an animated GIF. If it's pixel art, animated GIF is completely acceptable. Just make sure that the scaling is big enough that we can all see it. You could make an animated GIF like what one of those people did where the camera is wiggling back and forth. Any of those presentation methods is fine. Give us the most to work with that we can. Don't try to just sneak it in above the requirements. Try to make us go, wow, ooh, that's cool, I love that. That's the job of an artist. Okay? Great. And Piskel can export animated stuff, by the way, if anybody's doing pixel art. Yeah, yeah. A lot of these do, actually. I think Krita does. This one doesn't. GIMP, I don't know. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Questions? Questions? Yeah. If that's the way you want to set your goals, then yes. So you can set your goals as large or as small as you want. You could set your goals to say, I am going to turn in a full, complete environment. And there's obviously a lot of intermediary steps to that, but we're not going to see them because you set your goal as the end result. Or you can set your goal as I'm going to design a plausible environment that I can build, and then I'm going to build the environment, and then I'm going to decorate and texture and light the environment, and we would see 3 separate things at that point. Okay, it's up to you. How often do you want feedback from us? How often do you want a grade on something is what you want to consider. How much scheduling and juggling do you want to do? So for me, because I'm fairly confident in the earlier stages of most projects, I would only set a goal for a finished delivered project. But if you're looking to get feedback along the way, maybe you should set several, intermediary goals before the thing is complete. And the big bonus of setting intermediary goals, by the way, is you could design your full environment and achieve that goal, and then decide not to go for the next one and to change what the project is going to be. Instead of complete it, then you could say, okay, next I'm going to design a different environment instead. So it gives you that flexibility. What are you bumping? Is level design and environment art interchangeable? Not 100% no. Level design, if I was just to be the most literal, is how is it laid out? Environment art is how does it look? So they are very similar. Sometimes for job reasons, they're called the same thing, but that's just kind of confusing. They're not literally the same thing. And for more information on that, I'd recommend Polycount. Polycount is a repository of 3D terms that you can look up and get a lot of good information for. Or CubeBrush. CubeBrush is actually really good too. I gotta put those YouTube guys on there, whatever that's called. Flip Normals. Yeah, I gotta add that one. Put that up here. It's another good YouTube resource. Yeah.
Quick final question on the tabletops. Would you accept personal playtests? Like if, say, if I were to make a tabletop and I didn't do it again for you would gather people that would perform playtests.
That's good, but what are your fellow students here going to do? That's the problem, right? We need to be able to play it. So if you're intending to do tabletop things, think of that as a design constraint. Your design constraint is you have to hand a document to people that they can play without giving them anything physical at all. And that could be really tough. Yeah. It's not as tough if you're just modifying Yahtzee or modifying checkers. It's a lot harder if you're modifying a full, interactive tabletop role-playing game or something. But then think about anyone who makes one of those for real. They need to find playtesters. They need to coordinate that. They need to get feedback in order to successfully design their game or their rules. Let's see. Going from Maya to Unity is something I want to learn. Yeah, you can learn that. I would say the Essentials pathway on Unity Learn will teach you at least a little bit about asset integration immediately. Or you can also request that as a lecture topic. Go in here and say, I want to see how to bring a 3D model into Unity. It will take me 5 minutes because that is a really easy thing to do. Now, showing it off in Unity, you got to set up your camera right. You might want to think about post-processing and lighting. Optimization is its own entire, bucket of worms. But just showing you how to put something into Unity so that you could publish Webgl, absolutely easy. In fact, I did that for one of those tutorials there. This how to publishing your projects. I just grabbed a random animated thing and just stuck it up on itch.io to make my tutorial. So, yeah. I am shocked that Marmoset is expensive. I thought it was a lot more affordable. But, well, Sketchfab's free, so yeah. Substance is free student license, yeah. Yeah. Substance is really good, by the way, you guys. You should learn it if you're planning on doing 3D modeling and texturing. Anybody else? So first things you guys need to do, right? In the assignment area, make sure you've done this. Click on there, fill out the survey, right? Go to the project schedule, fill that out to the best of your ability because you get a grade for that. Second thing you want to do is think, what is it do I want to learn or do, and turn that into your first game project. Okay? Make your goal realistic and small. If you need to discuss it with me, discuss it with me. Okay? Say, how does this sound? Paste it up into this channel, or make a full discussion thread for it. What are some good goals for a starting 3D modeler? What are some good goals for a beginner game programmer? Shouldn't be too hard. Okay? Are we able to change the project schedule later? Yes, absolutely. Try to avoid changing it same week or right before it's due. That would probably be something that instead of changing, you need to abandon and then set a future turning goal instead. But if you're 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out from it, then, or especially if you haven't even started on that project yet, feel free to just switch it up however you want to be more realistic. If you need to have a discussion with me about it, then just ping me on Discord or send me a message on Canvas or start a discussion thread about it. More questions? I got more answers. There goes a loud car. If there are no more questions, then that can be the end of our meeting for today. If you want to talk specifically about you and your goals, we can talk about specifically you and your goals. That is essentially what these meetings will be for, mostly talking about you. You don't have to be nervous about the grade. The grade is just going to be mostly an average of all the things that you turn in, because you see they're each worth a certain amount of points. If you turn in 3 of these, that's 300 points worth. Your grade has to be out of those 300 points plus this. If you turn in 5 of them, that's 500 points. So your grade has to be out of 500 plus this. It's going to be an average of all the things you do. If you do one assignment, it goes really wrong, just do a few more. It'll all average out. Okay? If you want to take it slow and steady and just work on one a few times, that's fine. If you want to crank them out like crazy, crank them out like crazy. And also, by the way, there's no rule against going back to redo the same thing or fix it. If you turn in something, you think it's done, everyone else thinks that it's not done, and you get like half this amount of points, make it your next goal to fix that one. And then you can fix that grade instead.
Could you one time, just real quick, I guess I just missed it because... Can you show where the peer review aspect is?
That will be automatically generated, and I'm not sure how it's going to appear for you. I think it's going to assign an assignment for you. But when I go into the edit portion of this, there was a field down here to say require peer reviews and how to assign them automatically. So it means that when you submit your text, because that's all this is the answer to these questions down here,
Yes.
then you hit the button, it will generate a peer review assignment for everyone else. I don't know what that looks like, but I would assume that it's going to appear here somewhere.
I read that at the bottom that you weren't. Yeah, I read at the bottom that you weren't sure how it was going to work.
Yeah. I'm interested to see. If it ends up being really confusing or strange, then we'll stop doing it that way and I'll devise some other way to give feedback. But I think this will be an easier way, I hope.
Other than the peer review, I understand pretty much how to submit.
Yeah.
So I don't really have any questions.
Okay, great.
I have one. So
Mhm.
anybody can just start a discussion on the discussion board, right?
Absolutely. I will regularly pop in there to take a look. If you want my attention, though, it's easier to get my attention on Discord by tagging me. If you guys don't know, and I'll just do an example here. If you do @ and then type a letter, it'll give you a list of users. So @Tabor, like that, is a way to notify me. That means that my phone will pop up a notification. When I open Discord, I will see specifically that there's something trying to get my attention in that channel. Don't overuse it for everything, but if you need to get my attention and be sure that you get it, type that first. Okay. Also, there's a little optional thing in Discord. I don't know if you guys have done it. If you look at the read only section, in fact, here you go. If you look at the read only section on the Norco Game Dev channel, just scroll up. The optional roles section has this little thing that you can click that will assign you an optional role, such as artist, programmer, whatever. I think they're mutually exclusive right now, so you can only have one. Wait. Oh, you can take all of them. Okay. So at that point, you can say @artist, @programmer, @game designer to get the attention of all of those people. That one you should really not abuse because it will just annoy people. But within the GAM7 class channel, if you did @programmer like that, see it's an actual role, then I could say like that, and it would ping all of those people. So if you're looking to recruit for a project or if you need the guidance of that group, that would be a way to get their attention. Again, I would much more strongly recommend using the discussion forum for that sort of thing. There you go. Everybody's saying hello. People who aren't even in the class now are jumping in there. Okay. Other questions, other problems, etc. Show me where to find peer review. I lost it. They don't actually exist yet, Salvo. They'll generate once people turn in assignments. So there are instructions on the lower portion of all of these assignments for what the peer reviews need to consist of. So when you're giving one, answer these 4 questions, just copy paste them and then fill them in. But your assignment for that won't generate until someone turns one of these in. Then it should automatically generate. What I might just do, like over the weekend, is just myself. I think I can grab a student view and then just turn in like a spoof one to see if it generates an assignment so you guys can see, but you'll see it as soon as someone turns one in. I can view all the peer reviews. By the way, it says submit them anonymously. That's not anonymous to me. That's anonymous to the person who turned in their work. So I will know who typed what, so don't be too rude. Do be honest, though. And you will get participation points for completing peer reviews. So make sure you do them. Further questions? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If that's what you want one of your projects to be, what is it that your goal is? Just learn how to do this? Okay. At that point, there's nothing for us to review except for that you did it. Right? So if you can have a goal that's a little bit more meaty than that, then it helps. Like, say, not only learn how to do it, but extend it by adding this feature, or learn how to do it and then reproduce the tutorial on my own without the tutorial's guidance. That would be ways to test yourself and give us something to actually review. But if it's just like complete the tutorial and you completed it, then it's going to be a really boring peer review. Everyone will just say, yeah, you did it. Okay, yeah. Are we allowed to use the Lego Unity package? I don't know what that is, but it sounds intriguing. I don't know what you're using it for, but that sounds cool. More questions? All right, see you later, Salvo. Oh, I didn't know about it. That's cool. No, and I've got a link to, let's see, opengameart.org is a big repository of open source game art assets. The only thing I would be careful of is you're not taking assets from a published game that didn't give permission for anybody to use that stuff. But open source things, free things that are just on like the Unity store or whatever, that's completely fine. Itch has a free assets section as well, which I've linked to here. The asset store in Unity has both for pay and free assets. Absolutely, go ahead and use that stuff. And that's also true for artists. The only problem is for artists, you have to make sure to properly distinguish between what is your creation and what is a free asset, just so that you don't cause any confusion. But you can get things like, a free character controller on there, and then that's a really great way to show off your work. I'll be in. Whew. Wow. That's great. Yeah, and so if you're using those assets to show off level design or show off game, prototyping, absolutely fine. Just maybe state that somewhere just to be absolutely sure. But in our class, your goal will be I wanted to lay out a level, and so we're not even going to really pay too much attention to the assets. If they look great, then that's wonderful. If not, then it doesn't really matter. Okay. Jay, you had a question?
Yeah,
Oh, I think you're.
I was saying for the I'm typing as I'm speaking, so I better go quick. You send me like a sprite sheet, right?
Yeah.
Like if to showcase like, oh, we created these sprites ourselves, we created these assets.
Oh, I don't need proof. I'll take your word for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you have an animated thing and you say you did it, I'll just believe you. You'd only be robbing yourself if you were lying. You'd be getting a grade, which is essentially equivalent to nothing, over experience, which is gold. So, yeah, you don't need to prove it.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. All right, anybody else? More questions? I am just here until you guys run out of questions. Or 8 o'clock, whichever comes first. All right, fair enough. Thank you very much.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
See you later. Then if the rest of you guys stop responding at some point, I'll just assume that you've gone to sleep with your head on the keyboard and that I can quietly tiptoe away. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just sticking around just to see if anyone else asked questions, because sometimes like they ask questions that I didn't know I needed to know,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So
Yeah.
but it looks like that's it. So I'm gonna head out.
I think the rest of them are asleep.
I was just gonna wait until the class-related things were done, and then ask for some advice.
Ask away.
All right, if nobody else has anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think about doing like a, I guess a pipeline kind of thing, like taking a character from like all the way to engine ready, game ready?
That sounds great. Do you know how to do that?
No, that would be the experience.
what parts of it do you know how to do?
Well, I need to learn. I need to learn to sculpt. I know a little bit of Substance, and I can model in Maya, but
Okay.
I want to be able to. I want to be able to do baking with a sculpt from ZBrush. So I wanted to learn that.
So then you're going to break down that goal into those individual things you need to learn, and each one of those would be a project. So your project goal would be learn the basics of sculpting and have one decent sculpted asset, right? And so what you would turn in is just either a video turnaround of that object, or you could put that object on Sketchfab. It will display sculpted things. You don't have to retopologize or anything. But if your goal is modest like that, then we'll get why it's not a game ready asset, why it's just a sculpture, and you will have achieved your goal. Then you move on to the next one. I want to retopologize and unwrap and texture my sculpted object. And so you learn about that and you accomplish that. And then you move on to I want to import it into Engine and have a simple script to show off my 3D object. And you turn in that. And each one of those goals could easily be 1 week apart if you were really humming along and learning things quickly, or 2 weeks apart.
Okay, yeah, that seems smart. I was gonna ask if you thought it would be a better idea to have longer, more grand points of completion.
Not really. I would tend to recommend smaller ones.
Sounds good.
Smaller is an opportunity to change direction. It's an opportunity to fail and recover. It's an opportunity to see how fast you're capable of working and whether or not you need to speed up or slow down. I wouldn't recommend waiting a huge, long amount of time. Okay?
That makes sense.
Cool. Let me see, there was a question. If you use an online concept image for 3D art, how do we give credit? You have a link to the original source and show the account of the original artist. Yep, that's a really good way to do it. What Nathan said. Yeah, on ArtStation, there's an actual mechanism for it that if you paste the other ArtStation account, their artwork in the description, then it produces a little badge that you can click on to see the original 3D or the original concept art. Yeah, attribute the artist, give a link if you can.
Does it also like link there? Doesn't the original artist, also get like a notification?
I hope so. Yeah, I think so. More questions? Okay.
That's kind of funny that someone's named Nathan B. So I thought, wait, I'm in the class.
Was there? Oh, yeah. We had like 5 different Davids, and so I gave them all nicknames. And I hope I didn't insult them all.
Oh, you did that. I thought they like collaborated.
No, I did that because there were so many. But I'm worried because not a single one of them filled out this thing, and so I'm like, maybe I like insulted them and they ran away. Something.
David Prime has no right being insulted.
Right?
So just on the off chance, I don't know if I actually would accomplish this, but is there like a say maximum amount of content you should be making? Like,
Well,
as we can say,
we got 18 weeks.
oh, I mean like for the individual projects, like
Oh,
like say like we don't want to make the playtest too long.
oh, jeez. Yeah, I mean, I would say try to use common sense, but I know that it can be hard if you've never done this before. Uh, Nobody's going to want to spend more than 15 minutes. And it would be asking a lot to take more than 15 minutes of their time. So a game which is simple enough to play in that time frame, or rules which are simple enough to grasp in just under 5 minutes and then play for another five, that sort of thing. So yeah, try to keep it as small and bite sized as possible. And typically when we're practicing skills, larger is not better anyway. We just want to make sure that it's well executed and presented. That tends to be far more important. Okay. One says, do you have advice for going about making an environment? When I try to attempt making one, sometimes I get overwhelmed. Yes, make assets for the environment first. So instead of making an entire environment, try to make a list of what might appear in the environment and make your first goal to make like a set of those objects. So if I was going to make, let's say, a castle banquet hall, and I list out all the things and I find I need furniture and I need wall decorations and candelabra, and then I find I need food and plates and stuff like that, I start to break that down into sub lists and say my first goal is to make just the furniture. So a banquet table, bench seats, throne like chair at the end of the thing for the king or whatever. That's probably it. I make that stuff and make it good. At that point, I can decide to either call it done and bail and do a different project, or I can keep going and say, okay, now I'm going to make a tablecloth and some forks and plates. So no food yet. So I make all of that stuff. And if I'm still going, then I say, all right, now I'm going to try to make some food items. And I'll think about what would be all over the place. So we'd probably have like maybe a leg of mutton that I could duplicate all over, or a bread roll that I could duplicate all over, so like a potato, and then start to make a set of food items. And by that point, I've got a pretty nicely decorated, full, complete, dining table asset, but no environment yet. And so then I might make a floor, walls, and an enclosure area with some architecture to contain it. And we're slowly creeping towards full completed environment that way. Mm-hmm.
I guess it was, yeah. Would you personally say that it'd be easier to go through like a sort of pixel art approach, or say, because I'm currently planning on going with my projects by doing everything like hand drawings, and I know how to like animate things, I know how to
Mm-hmm.
draw that sort of stuff out. But would it be less time consuming, I guess, to learn that pixel art and do it all through that?
Uh, I don't know how to answer that. Like, so if you already are comfortable with drawing, you don't have to learn anything to just make a drawing. But if you don't know pixel art, you have to learn pixel art, and so that's a bunch of time. It's typically easier for people to make a lot of pixel art and animate it, but if you're already comfortable drawing and painting and animating, then maybe that's not true for you at the moment. What I will say is that traditional animations are a lot of data because there's a lot of frames involved, and you have to upload all of that material, which means the loading time for your project can get rather big. But if you were just drawing like stand-in art that wasn't going to animate, then I would say just sketch a bunch of stand-in art and use it in place of the thing in your game, and you can easily prototype and playtest that without the need for anything fancy. So it's kind of tough to answer, really. But pixel art is efficient. Pixel art is easy to compress and upload. It's easy to have a lot of it in a game without requiring a lot of loading time. Traditional art, like Cuphead, for instance, is a lot of overhead in terms of the number of frames, the amount of art assets, and some care has to be taken to make it a reasonably sized project at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if you want to request a topic along those lines, go ahead, because my specialty is animation. I learned traditional animation in school, did 3D animation as my job, was hired on to teach 3D animation and rigging as my first teaching assignments. So I know quite a lot about that, and I'm very familiar with doing those processes. And I'm teaching the animation and rigging class right now. So I could lecture on a topic like that briefly, or compare and contrast the different methods. Yep. No problem. Night. Let's see, what are they talking about? Break it down into smaller sections, find assets that are repeated. Yep. Do a large environment. Yep, that all seems pretty good advice. $5 admission. All right, you guys, any other questions before I turn off recording, turn off screen share? This will be the longest QA. What's up?
I'm just here to listen to you.
Well, I probably should stop recording pretty soon because this is getting to be a huge file. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. If you guys have any last minute things, I'll hang around to answer them.